This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by a couple of former United players to talk over the last few weeks at Manchester United. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get your comments and questions in. If you're watching live on Twitter, on the stream on Twitter, if you put your comments in a tweet to me and I'll read them out. If you're watching on the replay, say hello and comment. We do reply to the comments you get. And if you're listening back on the audio podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe on the platform you're listening on. As you can see, I'm joined by Phil Marsh, who's been with me throughout the start of the season. How are you doing, Phil? You all right?
Yeah, all good, Wayne. Good to be back on. Obviously, nice to see Lee for a change after a few weeks off, shall we say. But no, good. Obviously, couple of good signings there towards the end of the window, which has made it a little bit more bearable probably for United fans. And yeah, hoping that they can fit straight in and sort of improve the depth of the squad, which was obviously lacking. So yeah, looking forward to the Arsenal game at the weekend, and then hopefully a couple of weeks break so that some of the players who have got knocks and injuries can maybe have a bit of time to recuperate.
Yeah, Lee. Like Phil says, Lee is here, and I was going to build you up as an emergency deadline day signing, but you're never leaving, so you don't have a choice in that. You're contracted for life, unfortunately, so you're not signed. You've just been missing for a bit. How have you been, mate? Right?
I've been fine, mate. It feels like the season's starting for me this weekend, if I'm being honest. Absolutely hectic summer up to now. With the kids, my lad's a gymnast, my girls does horse riding. They've literally took up every spare bit of minute, and then I went on holiday to Perpignan, believe it or not, watching a different sport when watching Wigan Rugby play Catalan, and totally off the subject of what we normally talk about. But I would advise anyone, whether you like rugby or you don't like rugby, the atmosphere, what my experience there was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it's definitely one to put on your bucket list. But like I say, it's great to be back and getting back into the routine. And hopefully, like I say, my season starts now, watching it, and looking forward to analysing the rest of the season with you guys.
Yeah, Paddy Barclay told me about a year ago. He said his advice to me was, if you ever want to travel, go to France or go somewhere in Europe and watch a game of rugby.
Mate, it was unbelievable. The atmosphere. I was in the Wigan end, obviously, being from Wigan myself and being a Wigan Rugby supporter, but the actual day and the interaction between the fans and the atmosphere at the ground, it was superb, mate. It was brilliant.
Nice. Robbie says, good to see the band back together. Oh, you're doing well. What he's saying is good to have Lee back on because we've been boring for the last couple of weeks. Chris Johnson says, Amrabat's a good signing. I'll be there at Brighton game by the tunnel as well. Can't wait. Yeah, let's get into that because it has been an eventful transfer window and a very eventful deadline day. As it stands, Bayindir, the goalkeeper, Reguilon, the left back, Johnny Evans, the centre back, have all been confirmed. Reguilon on loan, and the other two permanent signings. Evans on a 1-year deal, and the fourth name, which hasn't been confirmed, but the deal has been agreed, is Amrabat from Fiorentina, the midfielder we've tracked all the windows. So he's been the one who has been constantly linked. The other three, somewhat surprises of the last week, shall I say. Lee, I'll come to you first, considering that you've had so much time off. And not really about the earlier signings in the summer. I want your reaction to what's happened today. The players that have come in. Obviously, United were needing some players. They needed to sort of bolster the squad because of the injuries that they've got at the moment. Never ideal to start a season like that. What do you make of what's going on today?
I'm absolutely over the moon if we get. Well, I think we have got Amrabat over the line now. Whether it be a loan signing or whether we've signed him, on a permit, it's going to look like it's going to be a loan. With a chance to buy at the end of it. I've been calling for his name, since last season. I think he's an exceptional player. It's one of them where I hope to God he can do it in the Premier League, because you watched him at the World Cup. He was immense. He will bolster our defensive midfield with Casemiro no ends. So I'm absolutely over the moon with signed Amrabat. I think it's we couldn't have signed a better player at this moment in time for what we need. the Reguilon one, I get it as, it's not costing us too much money. It's kind of an emergency at left back at the minute, because obviously we've got Malacia out and we've got Luke Shaw out now for quite a number of weeks. A bit disappointed that we're not seeing so much of the young lad at left back. Is it Fernandez?
Yeah.
The 20-year-old lad. I would have liked to have seen him give him a chance, but then you've got to look at it on the flip side. If we play Dalot and give him a chance, and Dalot gets injured at left back, then he's going to have to be our main left back for the rest of the season, which is going to be probably a little bit unfair on a 20-year-old lad with very little experience. But I think hopefully he'll get a few more chances with Reguilon now. I can't see Reguilon playing every match. For me is a good emergency panic buy, if you will. We needed something there, just to give the squad the numbers a bolster, and I think that's what it's going to do. For the rest of it, Johnny Evans, my old teammate of mine. So we've got Tommy and back there and Johnny Evans. It's nice to see. I think he's probably got signed more for the for the young lads, and you just have to have a quick look at what he's won throughout his career. He's won the FA Cup. He's won the Champions League. He's won the Premier League. Is it three times? He's won the Premier League. He's got an abundance of knowledge and experience there, which he can carry through not just for the first team but also the young lads. So I don't think it's a bad signing whatsoever. Højlund, I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. I didn't know so much about him before he's come over, and I know this has been a done deal for a while now, but hopefully he's going to get minutes on Sunday, whether it be from the start. I'd love him to start. I'm not a big believer of, let's fade him in, let's put him in phases. For me, if he's good enough, he starts. I'd love to see him start up front with Rashford on the left. I'm sure we'll get into that later on. Again, Onana, great signing, great goalkeeper. To be honest, I thought De Gea was brilliant. He's been immense, since he's been at the club, really, but he was fading towards the end, and he probably needed freshening up a bit. And Onana is, for me, he's not put much wrong since he's started. And yeah, I think it's not been a bad little window for us. I just don't want people to expect too much too soon, especially like I said, the Mason Mount. I've seen a load of people saying about Mount at the minute that it's a bad signing, and he's not set the world on fire. But I've just wrote something down here that I think he won Player of the Season twice at Chelsea, so he can't be a bad player, can he? You know what I mean? So we've just got to give him his time and see how we go. But as a window, I'm quite happy with it. Yeah, Wayne.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Mount before. I don't think anyone's actually made that point on the pod, and that's a really good point, that those kind of awards are generally won by the ones who are appreciated by the fans. You know what I mean? You can see the contribution that they're making. They're not necessarily headline makers. And if United need players in the team or in the squad, it's players like that. So, I'm not... Jury's definitely out on Mount for sure. I'm not joining in the criticism for him. Phil, we've obviously talked about the early signings, but the ones today, like Lee was saying, Amrabat's been one. To be fair, in the World Cup, he was so impressive that I was thinking, as a squad option, this guy, his energy and his intelligence on the ball seems like, if we were looking to sort of progress, like with Casemiro and Eriksen, then Amrabat's a really good backup for that. So I'm glad that he looks like he's coming in. The other three are obviously reactive to the situation that we've got with the squad at the moment. What do you make of the deadline day drama?
Yeah, as I say, I think Amrabat is obviously the main one. I think he was sort of a big one to get through the door. I think for that midfield, we are obviously lacking in that department, especially with Mount being injured now. For me, he brings in, as you just touched on there, energy. He's got that know-how, and he is a more defensive-minded player. So I think we are going to need that, especially with some of the injuries that we've got at the moment. I think we need that player to help Casemiro at times. And depending on the type of game and who we're playing, we may opt to go with 2 number 6s. So I think he's a great addition to the squad. As we've just touched on there as well, Johnny Evans, obviously another former teammate. I think, as Lee said, he's been brought in, not to play every week and not to be a sort of, starting player, but, he's experienced and he's been at the club before. He's won trophies. So to sort of bring that and sort of maybe rub off on a few of the younger lads will be brilliant. And he's there as, someone who can step in and do a job when he's needed. So that's a good addition as well. I think obviously the goalkeeper, Henderson's gone to Crystal Palace today. So, the goalkeeper's come in. I think Tom Eaton's injured at the minute. So we needed obviously another keeper to be available if, anything should happen to Onana. And Reguilon, I think Reguilon for me, I'm not 100% convinced. Let's put it that way. I think he's the best of what was available, maybe for be looking for a left back. So, I hope that he can come in and do a job on a short-term basis. And we'll just have to see on that one. I think with him, it's obviously, he's done okay when he first signed, I think, for Tottenham, but then just sort of, faded off a little bit and sort of, never really found the form of, probably what Spurs were expecting. So hopefully, he can come in and settle well. He's played in the Premier League now for a few seasons and you'll know what it's all about. Obviously, it's a different ball game playing for Manchester United. The expectations are going to be there from the get-go. So hopefully he can fit in and settle well. Just wanted to say as well, obviously, the young lad, I'm pretty much sure just seeing that he's going on loan to Granada, Alvaro Fernandez.
Has he gone, has he?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I seen just before we came on air. So, as Lee said, it would have been nice for him to maybe, get a couple of chances. But, obviously, if he's going to go on loan, at least then he's going to be playing first team football and get maybe a season in La Liga under himself to come back.
I'm surprised with that. I'll be honest, I'm very surprised with that they've let him go, especially with the squad being thin on that side. We've only got Reguilon now, who's an out-and-out left back, and then we're shoehorning a right back into that position, aren't we? So I'm very surprised at that, to be honest with you.
Especially considering Gerardo also went and he was a right back and he was highly tipped and he'd done all right on pre-season. I actually tweeted that about Fernandez because I thought not so much that I want him to get a run of games, but I want to see him given a chance. And I felt like when you've got a first team player and then you've got a backup in today's squad game, all right, fair enough. But then a squad is there and a youth team is there that you put that third player in, and like Matt says, I should have kept Alvaro. Look, I got a lot of stick for saying that I wanted Fernandez to get a chance, but it wasn't so much that I wanted him to get a run of games. It was like, literally, let's see him get a chance. United's history is littered with players who stand up, they get a chance when they're least expecting it. Gary Neville broke through as a right back, and everyone was expecting him to be a centre half. Beckham expected to be a right-sided, a central midfielder. He ended up being a right-sided midfielder. Rashford was nowhere near the first team. No one was talking about him breaking through.
We've mentioned it on the past a few times, me and Phil. This is the chances and the opportunities you work your knackers off for, season upon season. So I know it sounds bad, but for something like this to happen, so once you do get your opportunity, you go and take it. And for me, I just feel like it's a shame because this is that lad's opportunity. He's got himself a first team squad number and got himself in a position where he can challenge for places. It looks like he would have had a good chance of making a point of trying to do that this time. They've shipped him out on loan. For me, it's a bit of a bad decision, really.
I think. I think as well, like looking at it from obviously a young player's point of view. When you're in that situation and you see that there's injuries in the first team and, you're running a little bit thin on the ground and you maybe, players looking like there could be an opportunity. I think your eyes are lighting up at that point thinking, this could be my chance. This could be, an opportunity for me to step in and do well. And I think it is a little bit disheartening at times for young players, when obviously at this moment in time, they've opted to send him out on loan rather than give him that, chance maybe to, make that position his own and bring in, Reguilon, who, again, a lot of people will have, question marks over, he's not, lit the world alight at Tottenham. Tottenham are letting him go. Must be a reason behind that. So I think as a young player as well, sometimes you can sort of get a little bit downhearted and sort of, feel as though, what have I got to do to get an opportunity at times because,
I'd imagine he's feeling that the club. I'd imagine he's feeling that the club don't want him, and the club don't think he's good enough. Because, like I say, it's the perfect opportunity for him to showcase himself, and they fire him off.
There's not going to be many more opportunities or chances where it's a better chance for him to step in and play. And if they're not going to do it at this point, he must be thinking in his own mind, like, when is my chance going to be? So just thought I'd make that point quickly.
Yeah, I get it.
And it's like a few people have said, "Oh, well, it must be reflective of, Ten Hag sees him every day, you can't trust him." Then, all right, I get that, I understand it. But I think the point is to do with the fact that he hasn't even been given a chance, and it isn't, like we've said, it's an emergency situation. And I look back at two cases I'm going to make. Darmian, he played 90-odd games for us, but I remember he was given chances at both fullback positions. Are you telling me that there wasn't a young player like Barella who was breaking through, both Jackson? These guys not have been given more games rather than Darmian. £15 million, and I liked him. He was tidy, but it was largely forgettable, and he was a roadblock to a young player coming through. And he never really, it's the same way that Tellez, in a way, all right, there were some good moments in there, and there were moments of quality. But could you tell me that that's a United career that you wouldn't have rather have seen a kid being given more chances? All right, Fernandez might sink or he might swim. You just don't know, and that's the point. You don't know. This is the larger point I want to make with this, because Anderson's gone, as we know. Charlie McNeil, who looked like he might be a good prospect, he's another one who's gone out on loan. A couple of other senior players, notably Maguire and McTominay, sticking around by the looks of it. Whether or not that's through their own desire to stay or a lack of a bidder. But I look at United, and I don't want to be pessimistic. I think it's probably a little bit of the panic of the deadline day and the way that everything's rushed about. I look at the injury squad, and all right, nobody can do anything about that. But Shaw, Malacia, Varane are known to have injury problems in the past. And I look at the transfers that we've made today in particular, it looks like United are supplementing the squad rather than improving it. And it's difficult then when you paint that picture over the summer. Where have we really improved? And I don't want to be too pessimistic, but we're looking at a league where, at the moment, I don't think it's competitive in terms of winning the thing, because I think that's going to be City. But from Arsenal down to 7th, there's 2nd to 7th, that is the competitive area. And United, we finished in the top 4, but we're not guaranteed that position this time round. And I just look at where we are. We lost De Gea, we brought in Onana. He's a good replacement for it. Is he a massive upgrade? I'm not sure. Is Højlund a massive upgrade? There's a lot of pressure on him to come in and do something. Is Mount a massive upgrade in terms of quality on Eriksen? I know Eriksen runs out of steam, but in terms of quality, not a massive upgrade. Are these the players? What I'm saying is, they're good squad players that should consolidate a Champions League space. Are they good enough to challenge to Arsenal for 2nd? Are they good enough to challenge for 1st? I don't know if we've improved on those. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of money that we've spent to not really improve. And I'm trying not to be too pessimistic, and maybe I am just reacting to the panic a little bit of the day. But I'm just thinking we're going to sign 6 or 7 players, supplemented the squad, fattened it out a little bit, let a few players go, and I don't really see much improvement. I don't see where we are. I'm being too pessimistic, Phil.
No. I just to add on, I totally agree with you, and I think, as you've said, we have lost a few players, but we've not really signed any marquee players other than potentially you're looking at Højlund to hit the ground running. But as you said, for someone who's not had much of a pre-season, he's never played in England before, and he's going to have a whole heap of pressure on him to come in and deliver. Can he live up to the bill with that? Is yet to be seen. I think Amrabat is a very good signing. Other than that, you're right. We've just bolstered the squad, and we're sort of, just putting, a bit more depth within the squad, and not really adding that quality that's going to take us from being a good side into, an elite side that's challenging on every front, which is where we need to be and where we want to be. I think, as you've just said, pessimistic, but you're saying it with a lot of sense, really, with what's happened.
I mean, you can even go back to the season before where we signed Sancho and Antony for a combined fee of around 160 million, and you can't tell me that you think either one of them are really at this moment in time good enough to get a starting position on our right wing if we're going to challenge for the title. You know what I mean? It's a madness the amount we've spent. to still say, well, you know, a year or two down the line, we're still going to give him a chance. Surely to God, we should, when we're spending that kind of money, be making sure that we're buying the players which are going to fit in and are going to you know, improve us year on year.
Yeah, it does point to a situation, you know, obviously the financial situation, FP and everything like that. United obviously feeling the squeeze. It's very difficult to see how the ownership structure continues from this point. You know what I mean? Because the pressures are going to be on them if they can't finance signings on deadline. You know what I mean? If we are reacting to injuries, you know what City or Arsenal would be like. They would react and they'd sign a top quality player. You know, we've signed a player who's not going to be good enough to challenge Shaw when Shaw needs the motivation, and I'm not convinced that Shaw, you know what I mean? We probably need to improve on Shaw. That's the point, is that all these players that we're looking at, they are good enough to challenge the players that we've got, but they're not good enough to improve on the players that we've got. Like last season, we made a couple of statement signings. Like Anthony could still be that statement signing, all right. Casemiro obviously is in the middle, and Eriksen walked into it. But in terms of quality after that, and Martinez obviously is a quality in the middle. But other than that, it's all very much. We don't look like we're progressing. It looks like we've bought to stand still. And if we're standing still, like I said, we've got a very high risk of going backwards in this situation. Lads, I didn't, and I haven't talked about Greenwood situation over, and I don't really want to open the comments up to this. I just want to give you guys both the right of not very brief right of reply basically on the things that have happened. Mason Greenwood obviously looks like is the statement that was announced last week about, you know, that it's not expected that he's going to play for the club again, worded in a way that some people have taken that the wrong way and, you know, suggested that he might. I think it's firm enough to say that he's not going to play for us again. Rumours today that he might even move to Italy, but I think as far as anyone's concerned, it's the end of his relationship with United. They're just sorting that out. Lee, I'll come to you first. I don't want to get into the ins and outs of everything over the last year and a half. Do you think that United have made the right decision?
I think it's the only decision they could make, Wayne, if I'm being honest. We touched on this, when it first happened, I think, and we've not really spoke about it since. And I remember going way back when me and Phil was on about it. I think it was to your good self that when we was younger and when we was you know, trying to make it into the, you know, the first of all the 17s, then the 19s, then the reserves, and pushing for a place in the first team, your sole focus at that moment in time was football. You had nothing else to focus on. You know, you did your best day in, day out. You know, we was earning half decent money, but it was only money what, you know, what would get you by. I think what's happened with not just Mason Greenwood, but the vast majority of young footballers this day and age, you get given miles too soon. The superstars, before they've made it, they're not used to being told no in any situation. They're used to people, you know, pussyfooting around them and everything's yes, and it's Mason Greenwood or it's whoever. We've got to do as they say, and they get used to that kind of lifestyle. It doesn't do them any good. No good whatsoever, which it obviously proves. I know he's been, you know, by the letter of the law, he's not guilty. But the evidence, what was there, being at a club like Man United, also you've got to look at it the way that we're pushing the women's game now too. You know, it's, for me, there was no other conclusion really but to let him go, and it's a shame because he's a terrific talent. From a footballer's point of view, and from a, you know, a United supporter, regardless of what he's done, if he wouldn't have done that, you know, it probably, you wouldn't have signed Hoyland, it'd be probably starting as your number 9 now, and banging in goals, and, you know, the fans loving him. He's made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Hopefully he learns from it. He's young enough, and it seems that he, with his statements, that, you know, he's going to hopefully learn from what he's done, become a better man for it. But yeah, as a decision from the club, I couldn't see any other outcome really, to be honest.
Phil, there's some people unhappy with the way that it was handled. I don't want to really go into that either, but eventually they made the decision that, like Lee says, felt like the only one that they could make. Is it one that you agree with?
Yeah, totally agree. I think Lee's probably, put it in a nutshell there with the way I feel about it as well. I think there wouldn't have been a way that he could have got back into the team without, ruffling too many feathers and the animosity around it, and probably what it would have been like on a match day would have been, it just wouldn't have worked. So I think they've obviously come to the right decision. As somebody myself who's got 2 young daughters, I think, with the way he's behaved and, everyone's seen the footage and the videos, I think regardless of him, being not guilty, as it came out, I think there's too many things that have happened and publicly been seen for him to sort of recover and come back, which is a shame because we all knew, how good of a player was and the talent that he's got. And, I think he would have been perfect for us at this moment in time now if he was, fully fit, and he would have been someone who, would probably be, the future of the football club. So it is such a shame, obviously, what's happened. But as Lee said, he's made a mistake. The players these days get a lot, financially, and as you say, you've got to keep your mind focused and tunnel vision on the football. There's too many distractions, and obviously he's made a huge mistake, and obviously you'll have to live with that and face the consequences. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I did see obviously he was linked with Lazio, but I think that didn't happen. The Italian transfer window shut now, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether he can knuckle down and just try and get himself back into a sort of mindset of proving people wrong and trying to do all he can to show that he is improving and becoming a better person and becoming the footballer that he can be. We'll just have to see on that and see what happens.
Yeah. I think you're right about the Italian transfer window. I did see that they were possibly talking about a free transfer, and I don't know if that changes things. Not as a direct transfer between clubs, but if they cancel these contracts so he can sign somewhere else, that might be the case. Matthew says Mason Greenwood, tough decision, but the right one. Hope he gets the help he needs. United should help him, and United are going to by all accounts, and the alleged victim. That's it. I did want, we've not shirked the subject by any means, but I never felt it was responsible to talk about it before a verdict was reached from the club. And I just wanted to give the guys an opportunity to put their thoughts on record. I'm not going to be talking about it anymore. Let's talk about something. We're going to preview Arsenal in a moment, but let's talk about Forest last week. Good grief. 2 goals down in 4 minutes. And you know what? I was sat there and I was thinking, this is probably, in terms of how sluggish I had started the season, it's probably the best thing that could have happened to them to sort of get them out of the slumber, because that could very much have been a game that United won 1-0 sleepwalking like they've been doing for the first 2 games of the season. So it's something that sort of jogged them out of the system at least. Having said that, 86 minutes to score 3 goals against Nottingham Forest, and they were down to 10 men, and they were kind of just sort of not giving it away. But there was a 20-minute period where they were like really open, and then to finish the game against 10 men, looking like you're hanging on to hold the result. It was a tricky one. United did win. They won 3-2. It's too much. I don't really want to complain about it too much, Phil. Were you convinced by that? I mean, it's a good thing that they came back, and they definitely showed character to come back, and it's good to see Marcus involved in the goals and Bruno involved in the goals. But overall, I'm still looking at that thinking, well, I'm not sure if we're out of that funk yet.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it was a really crazy game. I think, obviously, I think I tweeted it was probably the worst start to a game I've seen, or one of the worst starts to a game I've seen. I think, to concede 2 goals in the first 5 minutes against a sort of mid-table team in the manner that we did was criminal. I think you've just started a game. There's no excuses to be switched off. You should all be buzzing. And I think to concede a goal from our corner, with just a ball that gets lumped out and a flick on, and the guy just literally runs through and scores. It's basic stuff. And then obviously that was bad. And then, a set piece 2 minutes later, and there's a free header on the 6-yard box. So, the manager must have been, absolutely beside himself with that. But I have got to say that the reaction after that was really good. I think, it could have gone two ways. We could have just capitulated and, we could have just, felt sorry for ourselves and ended up, losing that. I think obviously that does coincide with, if we had been playing a better team, we probably would have struggled a little bit more than we did. I think, Forest would have probably, tried to sit in at that point and just hold on and try and get a result. I think from that moment, though, I think we started playing a lot better and we was a little bit more on the front foot. I thought Bruno was fantastic. I think Bruno was brilliant in that game. Took the ball by the horns and sort of led by example. And it was good to see, obviously, Rashford trying to find that little bit of form. Obviously, he's not started the season as well as he probably would have liked. He's not scored yet, but he is sort of, game by game, just sort of easing himself in and finding that form that we want to see. So yeah, it was a good reaction. I thought, as I say, you've gone from starting the game so bad and being 2-0 down to Nottingham Forest, which is criminal at home, to then coming away and getting yourself in front, but then hanging on at the last 11 minutes added time, I think it was. So obviously at that point you're just trying to hold on and get the win and just secure it. But there's still lots to improve on. I think it's just difficult at the moment with the way, obviously, we've got a lot of injuries. We've not got a centre forward. Obviously, I think Martial didn't do himself any favours the other night. When he played, I thought he could have done a lot more. Considering he's not really played a lot, I thought he would have been chomping at the bit, and he had an opportunity there to maybe say, I'm here, and he could have took that chance with Højlund still not 100% match fit. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I think at the minute we're trying to sort of fit square pegs in round holes. Obviously, Rashford's not been happy with playing centrally. He is far better off the left. I think we all agree on that. So he's sort of had a bit of a, spat his dummy out the other night when he got brought off against Tottenham because he wanted to play on the left. I think Sancho potentially could have got a nod there in the number 9 position, which he didn't get. So there is options, but it's not really something that you're looking at and you're fully convinced that that's the team that's going to go out and everything's going to work fluidly and we're going to go out and get a result. I think at this moment in time where we're at, we've got a squad of players where there's 2 or 3 positions which is we've not got either the quality that's needed to be confident and to get what we expect as a Man United supporter, or we're having to put players in different positions to accommodate for other people, being injured or not fit or whatever it is. So I think once we do get everyone back fit and everyone's, singing off the same hymn sheet, you're building up your relationships with your players, and like we did last season with the back four, I think we'll see far better performances. I think up until that point now, we are just going to have to wing it a little bit and just try and grind out results and see how it goes. Because I think with the sort of lack of quality and real depth that we have got, it is going to be a difficult sort of start to the season until everyone's back and firing.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Lee. I remember going back a couple of years ago, and United talk about the latter days under Ollie and the time under Ranić. Where I think the conversation, or the points that I made a couple of times, that United were very good. Well, they seem to have a real good tendency of playing up or playing down to the opposition, whereas like they always looked to be on the level of who they were playing against. Like they could play a good game against a great team, but then when they played against a struggling side, they looked like they were really struggling. And I'm not saying that that's a problem with United. Obviously, I think they've got a few injuries and they look too rusty for one thing. But the point I'm making, against Forest, it looked like they were really, like to struggle to get over the line and then to be holding on at the end. It was a very strange sort of game. It's funny because I wasn't. Freddie went to get my nephew. If he's watching this, hello. At half time, he wasn't sitting with me. He was sitting with my wife. I went down to see him at half time. It's 2-1 to Forest, and he says it's going to be 3-2, and Onana's going to make a world class save at the end. Now, if an 8-year-old can predict what's going to happen, then it's a little bit. I don't know if that's good, if it's good on Freddie's part, or if it's a bit concerning that You can sort of see how United are going to plod the one out, because you see, they get a penalty, the Forest are down to 10 men. You think that United are going to, this is a chance for them to fill the boots, and they've still got the good enough players out there to do that and score like 4 or 5 goals. But they really didn't, considering how we played against Forest last season. Forest probably the weakest side that we played, and I know they've got a little bit more settlement and they look a little bit better this season. But considering the way that we came back, you're expecting we're going to kick on and really put them away, but we didn't do that. What did you make of it, Lee? Underwhelmed by the final product, or are you impressed by the fact that we came back to win?
Well, as you well know, Wayne, that day I was in the middle of Perpignan with about 35 Wigan rugby supporters, all drinking in a square, while I was catching up on MUTV with the commentary. And you can imagine in the first couple of minutes, the expletives, what they're getting shouted all around the square. I'm probably not the best to guide the game because I've only caught up with it on highlights. Obviously, I was away in France. I agree with more or less everything Phil said, really, to the point where it looked like an absolutely dreadful start, probably one of the worst starts we've seen for a hell of a long time. But like I say, to grind the result out from there shows that we've still got a bit of team spirit about us. We've got a bit of get up and go. It's just like I say, I totally agree with your point that it looks like when we play teams which we should be putting away week in, week out without any trouble, we drop our levels down to them. For some strange reason, it seems to be happening a lot. It happened a lot last season. And let's be honest, the start of this season is what I've seen has been no better, if not worse, really. The Wolves game, we was very, very lucky to get anything out of that. To me, we should have got beat. The Tottenham game, we got what we deserved. And by the looks of what I've seen on the replays and what I've heard guys saying against the Forest game, we were lucky against Forest. We've got 2 results out of 3, which is only a good thing. It shows that we've got character within the squad. And I totally agree with what Phil says. When we start getting a more settled squad who play together. I mean, we was on about it earlier about the signings and being a little bit pessimistic, but hopefully Amrabat comes in and sets the world on fire, gives Casemiro the cover he needs, and if them 2 start firing, what a midfield 3 we've got there in Casemiro, Amrabat and Fernandes to start off with. You know what I mean? That's a fantastic, for me, a fantastic 3 in midfield. We've got the young lad Ireland up front, and if everything's right about what people are saying about him, that he could get us hopefully potentially 20 goals a season. With Rashford on his day on the left, there's no one better. So we have got the lads there to do something again this season. I just think it's a case of getting us all fit, getting us used to playing together. Hopefully we can crack on and start performing more like United side should do when they start building them relationships, when they start playing more together, more effectively.
Yeah. So on to Arsenal and Lee. If we look at the team, Matt makes a good point in the comments. Casemiro from the system, Bruno and Mount is to attacking and out of position to hopefully too many times. Hopefully, Amrabat can help control the game. He's not going to be there on Sunday.
No,
I don't think they've got him settled in time. And Reguilon he's going to be left back, but Saka's going to love going up against a player who's leaving. Would you call him a Spurs reserve at this point? I don't even know if he qualifies as that. So it's
not even a squad player, really, is it? At the moment.
So, yeah. So I mean, he was on loan as well. So he's going to be really licking his lips at going at that. Arsenal, they drew 2-2 with Fulham last week, but they've got a pattern, they've got a rhythm, they've got a settlement in their side, and that's obviously going to be a big advantage against the United team who don't have that. Varane's going to be out. I know Lindelof, all right. So if I'm going to be completely honest, I think when Lindelof played last season, I don't think he let anybody down. I think he played just as well as Varane when Varane played. So I know Varane was part of a really good defensive run, but I don't think. The point is, I don't think. I think Lindelof stepped up last season, but it's still a big ask for him to play in a game of this nature and be as good as Varane can naturally be. So you're going to have 2 standing defenders. Mount's unavailable. A lot on Højlund's shoulders if he starts. That right hand side's got to come good because it's been a bit flattering to deceive so far. And Rashford, he's had the excuse of playing through the middle, and that's why his form's not been good. So put him on the left, he's going to have to really have a good game on Sunday. All these elements are going to have to click into place for United to get a result. And over the last few years, we've had some pretty poor results against Arsenal away. Lee, it feels like this is a really pessimistic podcast. I'm not expecting much from it. I think that United, it could be another tough afternoon for us, considering the fact that we've got a bit of a crisis at the moment. And you know what United are like. I don't know if this is the right way to, if you guys will know what I'm talking about. But when there's a bit of a low mood, it feels like we're waiting to get a battering off someone just to feel sorry for ourselves. And we haven't had that yet. I know we did against Spurs, but even that wasn't a battering. It was 2-0. It wasn't like the sorry for yourself. United in the past, they'll do a 4 or 5-0 and it's kind of all right.
6-0 against Liverpool and things like that.
Yeah, and then that's what it's going to be like for like a couple of weeks, and there's going to be a little bit of a crisis. And I feel like, have we overcome that with the Greenwood and Spurs thing? Have we moved on to a moment where we're recovering from that? I don't know. I feel like the mood is still there at the moment, and I don't know. Am I being too pessimistically?
No, I wouldn't say so. I'm more worried about our midfield getting overrun. If I'm being honest with you, I was hoping and praying that if we got Amrabat, it'd be over the line for Sunday. I do worry about what I've seen the first 2 games in particular because I watched them. I think the midfield got massively overrun. It looked like we had no legs. Now, if Amrabat's not playing, I think the only guy they're going to put in there is going to be Eriksen, who's a phenomenal player. But again, his legs are going to let that midfield down. So I think that's where we're going to come unstuck if anywhere. And again, Reguilon never played for us, had probably 1 or 2 training sessions with us. Not been playing regular for Tottenham whatsoever. He's like saying he's up against a world class player in Saka. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard for us to get anything out of the game. But United sometimes do have that tendency to spring a surprise on us. Hopefully, like I say, it's a surprise in a nice way and not the way we're probably all 3 of us are thinking it's probably going to go where we're going to get hammered. But I do stick by what I said earlier. Once we get everyone fit and getting playing and getting used to football is all about consistency. I know when I was playing at left back, I used to play with a lad called Ben Collett in left wing, and we used to, you form a natural relationship with each other just by the continuity of playing with each other week in, week out and training with each other and knowing your little habits. And that's just how football is. So once they start getting that and a settled team and knowing the centre-backs start settling and the wingers and the full-backs start getting a relationship, hopefully you start seeing that coming out. At the minute, it feels like we're at the beginning of the season with all our new signings and, it's still going to be touch and go how we go on. But I think we just need to settle. Get a settled squad, get a settled way of play, maybe a settled formation, and hopefully we can kick on and start improving a little bit. But as for Saturday, mate, I've got to be honest. I am pessimistic about it. Sorry, Sunday, not Saturday. Sunday, I am pessimistic.
Yeah. Dave says, good evening, chaps. Great show as always. Not sure if it's been asked, but do we go for Ireland from the start on Sunday? Rusty Holland will still offer more than a clearly out of form Martial. Dave, by the way, was representing the pod on TalkSport Social this afternoon. TalkSport 2 Social. He was on for a good 15 minutes. He actually predicted a 2-2 for United and Arsenal. Ben Collett. That was a shout there. That was it. So if anyone wants to know the United history from the early part of the 21st century, check out Ben Collett now. That was a talent. His career was ended by injury as well, wasn't it? Was it the legal dispute as well?
He got
against Middlesbrough or something.
Yeah, it was televised. He broke his leg in the FA Youth Cup semi-final, I think, when we was playing in the FA Youth Cup semi-final against Middlesbrough, and televised. The thing is with Ben, without going too much into it, he was the ultimate professional. A lot of these young kids now would learn a hell of a lot if Ben Collett would actually go in and just talk about his career and what he did. Because when we was young and we was into girls and cars and it's what happens when you're young. Ben stayed behind week in, week out, practicing his crossing or going on the gym or putting the extra hours in. The coaches and everybody took note of it. Obviously, he got a bad injury but he got a very handsome payout due to the fact that Alex Ferguson, Sir Alex, and Gary Neville and other club members went in and stressed what a player he would have been if it weren't for the injury. But the majority of that was down to his not just his ability on the field, but his actual effort and his his all-roundness off the field. Top bloke, top lad.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Phil, go on. You would have known Ben
Oh,
as well.
I'm just agreeing with Leah. I mean, funny story. I used to go in the gym sometimes, and I used to see Ben Collett, and Leo probably a testament to this. He used to be doing kick-ups with a tennis ball, just like in the gym, and I used to think, what's he doing? Like just doing kick-ups with a tennis ball, and I used to be like, oh, it's good, like obviously, but what's he playing at? And then, you know, when you get a bit older and you look back and you think, you know, while I was probably going playing table tennis or, you know, going dossing about in the gym, like maybe doing a few weights and having a laugh and a joke, he's there working on his touch and his control. And he's, you know, as Lee said, you know, he was probably one of, if not the most professional and, you know, dedicated players that I ever was around, really, because, you know, everything about him in terms of his lifestyle, his work rate, his attitude, the foods he ate, you know, he'd always be on, you know, on time for training. So he was definitely someone who I look back and think, you know, wow, some of these young players now, if he had these sort of dedication, you know, what kind of players we'd be seeing. So yeah, good.
I'll give a shout out to I don't know if you remember him that well, Phil. He was a little bit my age. Dave Jones. He was another one where you had an absolutely fantastic attitude on and off the field. Obviously, he made a decent career out the game. David, I think he's at Wrexham now.
Yeah, I think
a bit of coaching or something at Wrexham. Yeah. But them two lads. I mean, we all signed at 9 years of age. Me, Ben, and David, and I think David might have stayed on until he was 22. With United, and me and Ben finished at 21. But if you can give any example to any kids these days of how you should conduct yourself in and around our club, them are two lads, especially in my age, which I'd say just follow them, and you'll not go far wrong.
Yeah, I always remember David Jones. It was Preston or Wolves, one of the games. He was either on loan or just signed for them. He scored one of those free kicks, so they rolled it back to him and he flicked it up and volleyed it in.
Yeah.
That was a great one. So
that was his party trick, Wayne. He'd done that. He did it in training. He did it all the time with his party trick.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I remember that because I remember Di Canio doing it for Celtic and thinking, oh God, that's some skill. And yeah, I was made up for him when he did that. Phil, on Arsenal, Dave asks about Højlund, and Andy, Evening Andy will be well, mate. He says, a lot of pressure on Højlund. A properly run United would have had Kane or Omniscient. Maybe a good point, but we don't. We've got Højlund. And do you expect him to start on Sunday? And how do you expect the game to go?
I don't know. I think it's a difficult one. Obviously, you know, nobody will know other than himself and probably the management team and the fitness people at United how he's feeling and whether he feels like he can, you know, start the game. For me, if he's fit, as Lee said before, you know, you start, you play. If they're ready to go and the fit and your best players are available, for me, you should be starting them. I'm hopeful that he does start because I think that gives us a better chance of playing the way that we want to play and have someone on the counter attack who is out and out centre forward, a number 9 who knows his job and will hopefully be able to function and fit into that straight away. And also that gives us Rashford on the left, which is, you know, a massive bonus for us because we know he plays his best football from the left. I think, you know, speaking as you've just said, I am a little bit fearful, and the biggest factor for me is when I look at both teams, albeit when both fully fit squads are available for both teams, I don't think there's that much in them. However, at the moment, because Arsenal have got a much more settled team who have played together now for, you know, all basically last season, other than a few additions in the transfer window this year, I think they're a much more settled and functional team at this moment in time. I think they all know the jobs. Arteta's got them well drilled. And also, obviously, off the back of a poor result against Fulham, they're going to want to prove a point and come back and obviously, you know, show that they are going to be City's biggest challenges this year. I think they've obviously got the best opportunity out of the rest of the sort of challenging pack in terms of quality and squad depth at this moment in time. So I am a little bit fearful that we are going to be on the backlash of that. However, I do think if we can keep it tight for a little bit in the game, and obviously we have got game winners in our team. I think United can throw a curveball in there every now and again. I think a lot of people will be looking at this game as a potential banana skin, and rightly so, because Arsenal are a really good team, and we haven't started the season well at all. I think all 3 games that we've played, we haven't really shown a full 90-minute performance that is getting any fans on the edge of the seat or optimistic about what's going to happen this season. So hopefully this can be the game. Obviously it's the biggest game we've had so far. It's going to be the toughest test. Yes, we've got injuries. Yes, we've got players maybe playing in positions that they aren't used to or whatever. But I think this is a game where you show your character, you roll your sleeves up, you give everything, and you just hope that you can produce on the day and come away from the game with a result. I think a good result for us would be a draw. I don't think getting a point away at Arsenal would be any disgrace. So the lads have just got to go out and give everything, and hopefully that can get us a positive result.
What midfield would you play? This is a question I'm thinking of constantly, because, like I say, I feel like we've been overrun quite a lot in the first 3 games.
I play.
I was just going to say, with how the games have been, and it's looking like McTominay's going to stay now. Yeah, I think I'd have to put McTominay in instead of Eriksen, if I'm being honest.
Only for the pure fact of being away at Arsenal. I think the way they are, and obviously they do have a good midfield trio. I think for us, if we played Eriksen, you'd say Eriksen's better on the ball. But as you said, his legs are going a little bit, and I think the high intensity and the energy and the sort of power that Arsenal possess, I think McTominay would be a better option for me, just in terms of giving that little bit of extra cover to the defence and leaving people isolated. I think he does that really well.
I think if we're still in the game at 60, 70 minutes with McTominay on, I think that's when you'd be looking at bringing Eriksen on to put a nice free ball through, you know what I mean? That's the way I'd go about it, I think.
Just a quick one before we close off. Dave's asked about how you both feel about the new extra time rules. Obviously, he's referring to how many minutes are added now at the end of each half. He says it's one of the better rule changes, that along with players having to stay off the pitch for 30 seconds if they go down and need physio. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that last one. I get it, but it winds me up a little bit sometimes when I see our players who, if they've been kicked and they've got to go off the pitch for 30 seconds. I've not enjoyed seeing that. Gives me a little bit of anxiety. And I can't say I enjoyed staying for an extra 10 minutes at the end of the Wolves game. But
I was just going to say, it depends whether you're winning or you're losing. If you're losing, it's a great thing. If you're winning, it's absolutely terrible. So,
well, I think the thing is, me and Dave were talking about this, is that it's like it creates, depending on the tightness of the scoreline. And United have had 2 tight scorelines, and really 3 because they still had enough time as if they'd scored early on in the period. And the point is that it almost creates a mini game in itself, doesn't it? Like we saw it at the World Cup, and I don't know. Are you both for it? You both think it adds to the excitement?
I think it adds to the excitement. Yeah, I do think it gives you a little bit more. Like I say, if you're 2 goals down now, approaching 90 minutes, and 8 or 9 minutes go up on the clock, you still feel like you've got a chance of getting in it. Where previously, you're looking to get 4 or 5 minutes, and you're thinking, can we really score 2 goals in 4 or 5 minutes? So it does give you that element of excitement and brings that to the game. But like I say, if it's a tight, if we're winning 2-1 on Sunday and he puts 10 minutes up, I'd feel like shooting him. So it's all I can say is it probably adds to the excitement of the game a little bit.
Phil?
No, I agree. I think there's not much more really to say in it. I think it's one of them. The added time's always been a bit of a controversial one with injuries and the ball going out of play and all stuff like that. I just think, as you say, it adds that little bit more drama towards the end of a game, but hope maybe for teams who aren't, in the ascendancy or aren't, in a position where they can maybe get a point if there's only a minute or 2 that go up. Whereas now, if it's going to be, 10, 12, whatever minutes, at least you've got that little glimmer of hope that you can maybe chuck the kitchen sink at it to try and go and get an equaliser or nick a goal or whatever. So yeah, adds to the drama. I'm all for it. I love a bit of drama.
Dave, obviously, as he says, exactly, adds extra entertainment, as he would say he does on Monday mornings now that he joins me and Paul on the Monday morning pod. So that's a nice segue to end the pod. Dave will be back with me on Monday with Paul, hopefully, to review the Dave wants it to be doesn't want it. He's predicting a 2-2 draw against Arsenal. I am hoping for something a bit better, expecting something a little bit worse. So we'll be back next week to see. Hopefully, I'll be able to drag Lee back onto the podcast as well next Friday to review the game, and fills the little ever present member of the team. He'll put in a shift, but
I'm over my injury now, Wayne. I'm here to stay now. I'm back in the team, back in the starting 11. Over the injury now.
These unpredictable Mavericks like Lee Lawrence, we'll see if we can get him, unless he gets snared in the last 3 hours by another podcast.
He's like early, and he's like Neymar, just has his little couple of months off a year,
Phil, it was a long season, Phil. I've had to recuperate. It was a long season.
Yeah, he's back for another one though. If you've enjoyed the pod, please give us a nice review on the audio platform you're listening on, and if you've enjoyed it on the video platforms, please feel free to leave a comment. We'll still reply to those. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we're back next week to talk about the Arsenal game and preview the week ahead.